She's an internationally recognized life and business coach who's passionate about helping people thrive in their lives and their businesses. She's also helped tons of people all over the globe through her book, Healer in Heels. Here to chat more is author and personal development expert, Jasna Burza. Jasna, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here, Jasna. And I know we do want to talk about your book, which is Healer in Heels. Everybody, you can kind of see the cover there. Love it. But before we get into the details of the book, let's first talk about you as an author and a personal development expert. What exactly does that mean as a title, Jasna?
Well, the author, self-explanatory,
Yeah.
spent 3 years studying the research in quantum physics and thermodynamics and seeing how can it answer the overwhelm that most of us have felt in the 2020 and right after, this sense of really not having the grounding. And then in personal development, I've been, for the last 15 years, I've been working with individuals and speaking with companies and working on myself to really help others navigate the barriers, the chaos from the outside. The world is so loud, but also the chaos internally, I'm noticing, is even louder. So really finding ways to share the tips that I think can be very, very helpful to all of us to live a better, more fulfilled and peaceful lives.
Well, we're grateful for people like you who want to help us navigate through this oftentimes very crazy world. But Jasna, specifically when it comes to Healer in Heels, if people were to open up the pages of this book, what would you describe to them that they can go through in a journey while reading your book?
It's a guidebook for navigating a post-2020 world. It's a guidebook for really figuring out an inner peace in this world, tuning out the noise of the world right now with all of the conflict, with the inflation, with the violence and the crime, and tuning in to hear the whispers of our own soul. And I did so much research in, like I mentioned, quantum physics, and then I was doing work with my pastors and my spiritual teachers. I'm like, wait a minute, they're all talking about the same thing. So I tried to really condense all of that research in a way that even my 10-year-old could understand it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I feel like anytime you simplify kind of complicated information, it's just a lot easier to retain it and really just process it, right, and understand it. So a lot of helpful tips that we're going to find in Healer in Heels, but you also brought some helpful tips with you here today, Jasna. The art of saying no. A lot of us don't know how to say no, right? But it's that setting boundaries that we need both personally and professionally. So what tips do you have for us today when it comes to saying no?
Well, first and foremost, we really have to make the time to say no. If we do not take the time to say no and establish those boundaries, we're going to end up hating ourselves and becoming very, very resentful. And then overwhelmed on top of that, it really robs us of our own inner peace. And that's that anxiousness and the sense of overwhelm. So there's so many things that we can do, but I would say the number one thing is that it is okay, completely okay to say no. Most people don't think that that's actually a choice.
That's true. Most people feel that pressure to say yes, actually.
Yes, all the time. Well, I don't know if you're noticing this in the world right now. We are inundated with so much chatter coming at us from every side, and it's very difficult to say no because we feel we have to be involved with everything and say yes to everything else. But what happens is that we're really unable, our brains are unable to process so much activity, so much information, and we end up falling ill, becoming very, very unhappy, unfulfilled. So we have to find those ways to do that. That also really starts with checking in with ourselves.
So you first check in with yourself and really learn what are your boundaries, right? And how do you set them? But what's the difference, Jasna, by saying no personally and professionally? Because they are kind of two different worlds.
They really are. And I think that goes back to understanding ourselves. The old axiom, know thyself. We really don't. We don't take the time to stop for just a minute and ask, what is it that I really truly want? So the self-reflection of whose am I? What do I want? What does that look like? Allows us to make better decisions personally and professionally. And you're right. Professionally, sometimes I have to do the things that I have to do because I have to
Right.
show up. But even then, we can really clearly state our boundaries and say, oh, I'm really not comfortable with that. And maybe even offer an alternative. So it's not just a definitive no,
Yeah.
but offer an alternative. Well, how about we do it this way so that it's in alignment with one's values?
Oh, I love that. And that's a great piece of advice too. Even if you do have to say no, maybe have that alternative answer, right? So that the other person isn't just shut out right away. So that's amazing. But what other final tips might you have when it comes to setting boundaries and saying no?
Sure. I think it's very important to be very firm but very polite. One of the things that we do when we have been saying yes to everything and we become very resentful and a little bit upset even is that sometimes we can go into the other direction of being rude and disrespectful. And I think that it's a really beautiful reminder to all of us that, you know, no is a full sentence.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain myself, but saying no doesn't have to be controversial or confrontational. I can stay very firm in my beliefs, but be very, very polite and kind.
Amazing. Now I have one final question for you, Jasna, before I let you go. What has this journey meant to you personally to be able to help so many people, not only in this country, but around the globe with your book and as a personal development expert?
Thank you. Well, it really goes back to my childhood. I grew up in a refugee camp. So right now, watching what's happening right now in the Middle East has been very, very triggering. And it's a big reminder that in the sea of darkness, I want to be the light. I am the light. And I've gotten everything that I really dreamed of in my life, the American dream, all the success, all of the comforts of this world. And it feels good to be able to really be of service and fully understand what it means to have a purpose that's bigger than myself.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I'm so grateful that you survived so much that you did, and you're here to tell your story and inspire so many around the globe. So thank you, Jasna.
Thank you
We really
so
appreciate
much.
you. We are so happy to have you today on the show.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.